My name is Kathleen Carroll. I served as an attorney for the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing until last year when I was hauled out at 3:30 in the afternoon for essentially blowing the whistle on a number of violations against teachers, against violations for not following the Ed Code. I was instrumental in initiating a state audit of the agency. And I don't know, I think most of you are teachers, some of you are not, but the commission essentially licenses all of you, issues you credentials. And I would imagine that a lot of you don't really care for the agency, because while I served there for a little over 4 years, teachers were treated essentially as enemies, which I never understood, because the majority of the budget, which was $53 million, came from teachers. They funded our salaries, they funded our programs, but they weren't at the table. They weren't appointed to the commission. They weren't on the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, which disciplines teachers for misconduct. The deck was stacked against teachers, actually, and the deck was filled with pro-management, pro-privatizing, pro-charter. In fact, the current commission chair, Dr. Ting Sun, is a founder of a charter school in Sacramento, and she's also a board of director member on an organization called the American Board of Certification for Teacher Excellence, which is essentially a for-profit organization to certify teachers across the country for profit, for cheap, and it's not a full-blown teaching program. It's a $2,000 a pop program. If you take out a loan, you get to make more money, and then of course they have their own standards and their own tests. What I'm about to tell you is from being on the inside, this movie was nice. What's happening to teachers across the country, and not just in our state, is horrible. It breaks my heart. I have got calls from teachers who are terrorized, illegally harassed, threatened. One woman called me in tears, and she was threatened by an administrator that he was going to punch her teeth in. And this is all to move teachers out. They're purposely dismantling school districts in order to make room for these charter schools. And these charter schools are run not by people with administrative services credentials who have also been through a teaching credentialing program, because you have to do that before you get an administrative services credential. They're run by people that have no training in the classroom, no training as an administrator, and they're all connected. They're all connected at the local level, the school boards of school districts. They're all being backed by Broad and Gates and companies like EdVoice, AT&T, Walmart. They're all being backed by billions and billions of dollars. This is a war, and it's well organized, let me tell you. I don't know if you follow districts outside your own district, but Capistrano Unified down at the end of our state had a massive multi-recall of their school board, and this was all done with major money being backed to get school board members in. So your school board members are not protecting you. Your superintendents are being put in by these privatizers. I was, Michelle Rhee, who was on the film, I was in a coffee house one day in Sacramento, and she happened to walk in. And we were both there for 2 hours. She didn't know who I was, but I had already been in the news at that point. And I was there sipping my latte, and I couldn't help but overhear. In fact, I wanted to. She didn't know who I was, but I knew who she was. And she was sitting there, one by one. An individual would come in, sit down on the couch next to her, and she would recruit these individuals. She's on the Broad Foundation Board of Directors and the Broad Academy to recruit them to become superintendents. These people, again, no teaching credentials, no background in the classroom or as administrators, zip. And the unfortunate thing is these charter schools, if there was such a pedagogy that was wonderful, well, let's just use it. Why are we spending money? And we're talking under the Schwarzenegger administration, it was $500 million on constructing new charter schools, 912 which exist in this state today, when we're laying off teachers in mass. If there's such a great recipe to teach students, well then let's use it. Let's use it in all our classrooms. But it's not about that, as this movie touched upon. It's about profits, high-stake profits, and there's billions and billions and billions of dollars backing this. And it's really scary. And I didn't necessarily know it was happening as I was working there. It didn't happen until I was hauled out of there and I saw all this stuff, and I was on paid administrative leave for 2 months, and I'm connecting the dots. And I'm finding out who's backing who and all the politicians. And then my path led me to this privatization agenda. I don't think I had a sense of it while I was working there as an attorney. The sense of it didn't come until after I blew the whistle, after I got fired, after I started to become in the media, at the legislative hearing. Teachers started coming up to me en masse, and my phone was ringing off the hook. And I say to you, again, this movie's nice. CTA, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know where they are. But I have seen the ed code being violated and teachers' due process rights being violated, and I don't know where your union is, because they're not fighting it like I would think an attorney would fight it, tooth and nail. Morrison versus State Board of Education is a seminal case on teacher discipline. And some of you may or may not be familiar with that case, but it was decided back in 1969. And for any of you who have a teaching credential, if there's an allegation of misconduct and it's not related to fitness to teach, which means it doesn't have an adverse impact on students, it doesn't have an adverse impact on the school community, the commission's not supposed to investigate it. So let's say you're driving, you forgot to renew your driver's license, you get pulled over for driving with a suspended license. Well, where's that relationship to teaching? There isn't none. Well, unfortunately, the commission is all about money and increasing a bureaucratic empire. The audit report came out on April 7th of this year. And of over the 300,000 licensed teaching professionals in this state, they only sanction less than 500 a year. That's less than 0.5% of the population. And yet the media wants to focus on all these teachers out there and molesting kids. Well, I can tell you firsthand, because I've seen the numbers, that's not happening. Are there some teachers that are bad? Absolutely. But the majority of them are good. And the majority of them do not deserve how they're being treated. They're being treated like animals and like commodity. And kids are being treated like commodity. And in a free market, maybe that's okay. But you're not products that get bought and sold. And neither are our children. Neither are the students. And you really need to get more angry, because this movie was way too nice. I expected it to be a lot. I've been in contact with Diane Ravitch. I have seen and spoke briefly to Michelle Rhee. I have seen the players on both sides. And I tell you, it's really bad. It's really, really bad what they're doing. They are playing a really bad numbers game. They're scaring the public. Oh my God, we're going to have these massive cuts. And yet, if you're a charter school, money just magically comes out of the sky. If you're a charter school, I mean, I think all of you should just go out and get a sticker and put it on yourself. I'm a charter school. Give me public funds. Don't lay me off. Because if you're a charter school, there's no accountability. You don't have to be highly qualified like all the other teachers in traditional public schools have to be, even though they advertise that the core subject teachers are. There's no accountability, or there never has been, for superintendents. And administrators are just people that have no training. And I went to one meeting in Sacramento County Office of Education. So now teacher preparation is not just through CSU and UC. A charter school can teach, can offer teacher preparation training. And that's money. That's state funds. That's state and federal funding that's going to these organizations, private for-profit organization, as opposed to traditional public schools. And that's, kids shouldn't be competing. When the movie just started and I saw those kids out there say, we're gonna fight, it brought tears to my eyes. Should students be fighting to get better schools when it's guaranteed in our state constitution, not federal? I think there might have been a misstatement there. In our state constitution, it is guaranteed that everyone, regardless of income, race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gets a free and equal public education, and that's not happening. And unless people organize and really demand it, it's not going to happen, and we're going to lose the heart of our democracy, which is a free, equal public education, so people can be knowledgeable to know who to vote for, can be knowledgeable to know what they want to do in life, and pursue a career that'll give them a good living. The basics, the basic liberties that our founding fathers have fought for in this country have been completely stripped away. And
Okay.
So much for bringing light to this subject. This is a conspiracy.
yes.
And it's really hard to explain to people in just a few words, and I think that's what we need to get to, a message like that. But also the Broad Foundation is, I don't know if you can call it advertising on KQED, their program to get business leaders certified to, you know, whatever they call it.
The Broad Academy.
The Broad Academy, so that they can be leaders in education. Well, I think we should all write or call KQED and tell them to get rid of that.
Something to say about KQED. I have something to say about KQED. I was, when I started to get in some publicity on this, the Sacramento Bee did a few pieces, the LA Times started calling me. KQED, I was on NPR, KQED contacted me. And I had it with teacher bashing because that wasn't the issue. I knew it wasn't the issue. And I told KQED, I don't want any more teacher bashing. This is what I want to talk about. And I wanted to talk about the privatization agenda and what's really going on. I got a call 2 hours later. They won't need me anymore for an interview.
People who will.
It was Krasny that was going to interview me.
I know two people who will interview you. So
And I said, that's fine.
Also, July 13th, what time is it, the hearing?
Is joint, I wouldn't spend 2 hours having them go up there,
well,
but
July 13th, there is going to be
it'll be a
hearing,
boring
joint
bureaucratic
legislative
hearing.
What's going on in this teacher commission. If there are a lot of teachers that are raising hell about the destruction of public education, that they're responsible. See, I think the point is that these legislators are allowing this.
The legislators are backed by the billionaires. I don't know if all you are familiar with the Supreme Court case of Citizens United that made corporations essentially be allowed to be considered citizens for terms of campaign funds. Well, that was the Dred Scott case of our era. It really just set us back. And unfortunately, our legislators are just become corporate whores. I mean, I have traced city councilmen and women, our legislators, our school board members, our county office of education, our legislators, Senate and Assembly, all to these organizations. They have all funded them. So going to them, it's like, let's go talk to Michelle Rhee. Let's go sit down and have coffee with Michelle Rhee and tell her our grievances. I mean, as I looked them up one by one, they're set up as corporations. Maybe you don't know that. They're often called public because they receive public funds, but they don't abide by the same rules. There's very little to no accountability. There's currently an assembly bill Assembly Bill 401. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. Author is Tom Amiano here in San Francisco, Assembly member, and he has attempted to put a cap on charter schools. There's currently, and I don't know how they count them, 912 charter schools in the state. And the cap is supposed to be out to 2017, no more than 1,450. The problem is there's all these chains. There is a race, a literal race, to have the first county have a county-wide charter school, a charter school district, if you will. And there's probably incentive money from Broad and Gates and whatnot, whoever gets to be the first to do that. So when you talk about effectively fighting this and raising money through oil initiatives, I say repeal charter schools, repeal NCLB, repeal and no race to the top. It's not working. And someone needs to admit that it's not working, it's destroying public education on purpose, and everyone is going to suffer for that. And unless we do that, all the money that you guys sign up for, they're going to be selectively given to the charter schools and not your school districts. So you can raise more money, but unless that money is monitored and it goes to the right places, you're just spinning your wheels. Anyone in the union, teachers, attorneys, any public workers you have to go through an administrative process, and that's what I'm in. This week I meet with the agency's attorney and their executives and my attorney. They know they're in trouble. It's not been publicized maybe in San Francisco, but in Sacramento, we got rid of the executive director. He's left the building. The assistant general counsel, who was my supervisor, left the building. The general counsel, who's the real culprit, she has announced in public she's going to step down. Chair Ting's son, I don't know why Brown is allowing her to stay, because the JLAC, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, wrote Governor Brown to ask for her resignation. She refused. She's termed out in November. So people are leaving the building. There is a possibility I go back. But my passion now has become this saving public education, which 11 months ago I never thought I'd be sitting here in front of a group of people saying that. But that is where my heart is now, because what I've seen is so horrible. So I'm in this process of trying to get my dismissal erased and get reinstated and whatever.
You're still employed?
I'm
No,
not.
she's fired.
I'm unemployed.
Look.
Pensions. And he didn't like it and thought it was wrong, as well as a number of other employees. He spoke up about it, and he got fired. And this just happened about a week ago. So when you speak up, I mean, there's no more free speech after I saw that. It was in the B. I told him, I said, there's no more free speech. You speak up, you get fired. You get shown the door. You have no due process rights. It doesn't matter if you belong to a union. They bust the union, they bust collective bargaining, no due process rights, you get shown the door. The hearing is scheduled for July 25th, but I have a mediation this week, Thursday. There's no accountability for the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, the agency you fund, because it's in the executive branch. So there's no legislative comparison to most state agencies. It's about 160 people. The auditor came in and did a survey, and people were scared because they saw me get shown the door. And 43% spoke up and said they feared retaliation of losing their job for speaking up. That's high. And what also came out in the audit is there is a number of nepotism, a high percentage of nepotism and cronyism. So when you take those people out, the percentage would have probably been over 50%. Law firms to represent teachers, whether it be suspensions at the school district, dismissal hearings, or licensing actions. I've seen it go down. And they get paid a set amount of fee, and the goal is to settle as opposed to fight. And there are some really good people at local levels, and I've seen them. I've seen some really good people, but the problem is the overall CTA administration has become very corporate. It's become a very poorly I hate to say it, they've become due collecting bastards. Till 2017, then they could start raising them again. But it did pass the assembly. The problem is the legislative language that was taken out was that the legislative analyst's office, Amiano's original bill, required the legislative analyst's office to do a report on the efficacy of the charter school approach. That was lined out. That was lined out. And so now it's in the Senate. And actually today was a hearing on it.